Hi everyone and welcome to Susies Selections. I'm Peter Williams taking over from Susie for the next 4 weeks. Hopefully I'll be able to help you with your tipping.
Are you getting everything you deserve? At Sinclair Wilson, we can answer all of your financial questions, optimise your tax position and develop long-term strategies which will be very much to your advantage. Sinclair Wilson, for strength in numbers.
The first game is on Friday night, where Richmond travel over to the west to take on the rampaging Fremantle Dockers. While Richmond have been reasonably good the last 2 weeks, they've only beaten Collingwood and Essendon, who have also been quite inconsistent at times. Fremantle are a different kettle of fish and haven't lost all year. I can't see Richmond getting within at least 5 goals, but over in the west it could be quite a large margin. So Fremantle are my tip in that game. In the first Saturday game, Carlton host Adelaide at Etihad Stadium. Carlton improved last week. They got within 10 goals instead of 12 against the Swans. They lost their coach and improved a little bit, but that playing list still needs a lot of work. This week against Adelaide, you can't help but tip the Crows. They look better, led by Patrick Dangerfield. Despite not having the captaincy, I think they should win this pretty comfortably. In the second game of Saturday, Gold Coast hosts the Swans. Now last year, this would have been a fantastic clash. Gold Coast at home seemed really strong. This year, however, they've been rather disappointing. The Swans have improved bit by bit over time, and with a dangerous forward line, you never know what could happen. In this game, I'm definitely tipping the Swans. The Gold Coast have been okay at times, but have been rather disappointing of late. No Gary also doesn't help the situation. In the third game of the round, Essendon take on Geelong. I think Geelong will win this, simply because Essendon have been pretty up and down, more down than up lately. Last week they lost to Richmond in a battle of the inconsistent teams. Geelong have slowly been picking up the pace. I think they'll get there. Whether they'll make finals or not, there's still a question mark. But I think they will get there. And in this game, I think they'll have Essendon covered by around 4 to 5 goals. Port Adelaide host Western Bulldogs. Now, last year, Adelaide Oval was a fortress. This year, many teams have been able to penetrate both South Australian teams, particularly Port Adelaide. I think the Western Bulldogs will give it a real run for their money and could well win. This is almost a 50-50 game, which is a compliment to the Bulldogs considering how well they've improved this year. However, in saying that, Port Adelaide I think will win this game because simply home ground advantage, and they do have those few extra stars in. The Sunday games. GWS face off against Brisbane. I think GWS, despite the loss last week, are better placed to have a good game this week. They've had a reasonably good season. They're sitting in 5th and look set to play finals. This is one of those games that they just have to win. Brisbane, despite being a little bit better the last few weeks, I don't think they'll be able to match it with GWS. They're still lacking that key forward and they'll really struggle. It is the battle of, I guess, the northern teams that struggled last year. But in this case, I think GWS will get the win. In the second game of the day, on Sunday, we travelled down to Hobart for a, I guess, novelty match between North Melbourne and West Coast. North Melbourne pretty much handed Collingwood the win last week after they fell over, and all of their 12 fans will like to see them play in Tasmania. But seriously, North, I think, will actually win this game. For the pure reason of I don't think they'll win this game, so therefore they will. They're the Fremantle and Richmond of a few years ago. If you think they're going to win, they'll lose. If you think they're going to lose, they will win. West Coast have been superb this year, barring the round 1 bombing against the Bulldogs. I think, though, that North will really stand up in this game. In the final game of the Sunday clashes, St Kilda host Hawthorn. Normally, you'd say this will be a one-sided clash. It probably will be. But St Kilda have been pretty impressive of late. Not winning every match, but they've been competitive, which is all you can ask. Early on in the season, it looked pretty ugly at times, when they were getting beaten pretty badly. But they have picked up, and a win last week, wasn't the best of opponents, but a win nonetheless should see them in good stead. I think a pass mark would be to get within 50 points of Hawthorn, because after all, it's the Wooden Spooners from last year playing the Premiers. If they can get within 5 goals, it'll be as good as a win for their fans. And finally, the Monday games. Melbourne host Collingwood on Queen's birthday. It's an annual clash that always brings in between 60 to 80,000 regardless of where they are on the ladder. It's always either an unbelievably close game or a thrashing. This year, I think it should be pretty close. Melbourne and Collingwood have both shown at times that they can play good footy, but their worst is absolutely shocking. It'll be whichever team bridges that gap that will get the points on this occasion. I've gone with Collingwood in this match simply because I think they do have that little bit more experience and those match winners compared to Melbourne, although Melbourne do have quite a few good young talent to play off. Now on to the Hampton League selections. In the first game of the round, Portland take on Koroit. I think this will be a pretty one-sided game as they're at opposite ends of the ladder. Koroit is sitting second and looking pretty. They'll again be a contender this year, while Portland will be hoping they can rebuild over the off-season and become a stronger force next year. In this game, I think Koroit will have them covered by at least 6 to 7 goals. In the second game of the round, Cobden face off against South Warrnambool. I talked to their captain during the week, and he believed they'd improve over the season. Cobden will probably win this game, although I can't say for sure. They're young, they're enthusiastic, and they have a real shot. Cobden really need to win this game to give their fans some hope. In the third game of the round, Hamilton take on North Warrnambool. Hamilton got beaten pretty comfortably by Terang Mortlake and didn't kick a goal in the second half last week. North Warrnambool aren't quite as good as Warrnambool, but they have been rather impressive. They sit third on the ladder and will be in control of this game, I'd imagine. In the other game, Camperdown against Terang Mortlake. This is no doubt the match of the round. Two sides that are battling for top 5 spots have been ultra impressive throughout different parts of this season. While both have had really disappointing games, Camperdown particularly of late, they'll be both wanting to win to try and notch up that 4th spot and get a win ahead of the other. Right now I think Terang Mortlake will go in favourites, which I think they deserve to win, with Steve Staunton after he kicked a bag of 6 and 9 in the last 2 weeks, and one of them was for the Hampton League interleague side. In this game, Terang Mortlake should win, and win in an absolute thriller. I'm tipping by about 5 points. In the last match of the round, Port Fairy host the mighty Warrnambool. It's hard to see anything other than a Warrnambool win in this clash. Port Fairy haven't been bad. They even knocked off Camperdown a few weeks back. But in this game, Warrnambool are the superior team, and I think they'll get the job done. That concludes Susie's selections. I'm Peter Williams. Happy tipping.